rise on the seventh, beginning all things in the name of Allah. I give high honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, giving honor to Marcus Garvey, paved the way for the Prophet, giving honors to all faithful members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, past, present, and future, and giving honors to all Asiatic brothers and sisters doing their part to uplift all humanity, because man honors man, he honors Allah. Islam, Shalom, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, peace to the family. I am Shem, and I am the author of the book, What is the Higher Self? And this is the first of a series of video tutorials in which I actually go into the book explaining the details on what is the higher self and things pertaining to spiritual teachings as taught by Noble Drew Ali in the Moorish Science Temple of America. Just to explain, I will be speaking from the perspective of a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. However, I will be going into various different scriptures and texts of various religions dealing with comparative religious studies. Before I begin, I want to give a special honor to my home temple here in Durham, North Carolina, Federation Moorish Science Temple of America, under the supervision, direct supervision of my Grand Governor, Brother Robert Stone Ill, overseen by Supreme Grand Governor, Brother Jerome Graham Bay. I also want to give honors to my brotherhood, Ali's Men, which is a collective of Moorish American scholars and researchers from various grand bodies of the Moorish Science Temple of America who come together to bring to the public information to further the learning of the teachings of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So with that, I'd like to begin. When dealing with this book, What is the Higher Self? We have to go into first the definition of the higher self as initially given to us by Noble Drew Ali. That question, the title, actually comes from one of the questions in our Moorish questionnaire, which is this particular writing right here. Quran questions for Moorish Americans. And one of the questions that is presented is, what is the higher self? The short answer is that it is the mother of virtues. Higher self is the mother of virtues, harmonies of life, and breeds justice, mercy, love, and right. Now, in depth, you can find in our literature, specifically the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, also known as the Circle 7, there's a specific verse, chapter 3, verse 5 to 10. And at this time, I'll just go into it and then we'll go a little deeper. Specifically, it goes as follows. It says that there are two selves, the higher self and the lower self. The higher self is human spirit clothed with soul, made in the form of Allah. The lower self, the carnal self, the body of desires, is a reflection of the higher self, distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. The lower self is an illusion and will pass away. The higher self is Allah and man and will not pass away. The higher self is the embodiment of truth. The lower self is truth reversed, and so is falsehood manifest. The higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. The lower self is what the higher self is not. Now, within that definition, the first part of that definition speaks of human spirit. So in order for us to understand about the higher self, we have to first understand what is spirit. And that's what we're going to go in this particular part of our series. What is spirit? Spirit comes, the etymology of spirit comes from the Latin word spiritus, meaning to breathe. Also in our lessons it speaks about what other name do we give the truth? And we say holy breath. So when we speak of holy breath, we are also speaking of Holy Spirit. There's a passage in the Bible, Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, where it says that God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Well, so we find that the breath is the animating spirit, that animating force, that vitality that's within all of us. Now, there's spirit in animals, plants, and all other life. However, human spirit is distinct. So we're going to get into that. And what I like to do first is go into the languages where we get the terms of the metaphysical usage of the word spirit. So with that, I want to first go into our Hebrew. We have the Hebrew word nephesh. And these are the letters, the Hebrew characters that make up that word, meaning spirit. And I mentioned earlier that in the Bible it speaks about man, God breathing into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Well, the Hebrew word for that is nephesh chai. So it's actually living spirit. There's an Arabic version of this, or a cognate of the word nephesh, which would be this word right here, nafs, which is defined as the spirit also. It's also defined in Arabic in the Quran of Mecca as self. And when you're dealing with specifically the spirit in the Quran of Mecca, the great Quran of Muhammad, there's 3 different phases that the spirit actually goes through. The first phase is temptation. That's described in the Holy Quran of Mecca, the 79th chapter or surah, and the 40th verse or ayat. Phase 2 would be self-reproach. That's in the 75th chapter or surah, the 2nd ayat or verse. And phase 3 would be tranquility, talking about the spirit being at rest. And that would be in the 89th chapter or surah, and the 27th ayat or verse. Now, these 3 phases that is described about the self, the true self, going through these phases, directly correlates with our Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 1. And I like to read part of that specifically when we speak of that. And that would be the following. In part, it says, perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal nature was full manifest. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. So it speaks of that. And in close, in that same chapter, it says, man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah, and while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out, will have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore. And it will pass and be no more, and man will then retain unto the blessedness of perfectedness and be at one with Allah. So we find the same 3 stages mentioned in the Quran of Mecca, talking about the inner self, the spirit, human spirit, connecting with our Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So this is just a brief excerpt or explanation of just a part of this book, What is the Higher Self? And this concludes this episode. And so with that, I say peace.